Hi, and welcome back to Once Upon a Tiny Farm. My name's Drew. Today is December 2nd, and I believe we're in winter now, it's safe to say, and yet I still have a lot of food crops in the ground. In this video, I want to talk about what steps you need to take to prepare your garden for next year, and what you could do to ensure you have really, really good yields and really good crops grow in your garden the following year, and what you could do right now. So let's get into it. Okay, so the biggest lesson that I've learned in gardening is that to have really good soil, it's really important to always have something growing in the soil, or at least always have the soil covered with something. So right here in this bed, I have a bed of radishes. Now, actually all of these crops that are still in here were meant to go to the farmer's market for my farmer's market, but for whatever reason, a lot of things just prevented me from actually getting to the farmer's market with all this stuff. So I just kept everything in the ground. And that is actually one way to improve your soil over the winter, is to just keep these roots mass in the soil and help build up a really good soil biology. What's going to happen is the root masses in here eventually are going to die off. These are going to basically kind of go dormant in the winter months, but in the spring this will come back to life and actually will probably form flower heads and go to seed. These radishes will. But this is going to be great for the worms, and this canopy of the greens is actually covering the soil, and it's just keeping the structure of the soil intact. So a lot of people do something called cover cropping, where they just plant a certain crop to either loosen the soil, which is something that radishes can do. Specifically, daikon radish is a really deep radish that can help if you have really clay, tough, hard soils. A daikon radish would be a good thing to plant as a cover crop. Over on my actual market garden on the other side of my farm, I actually planted several rows of my salad mix, and I'm just keeping the salad mix in the ground. It's actually still alive, and it's got roots that are alive in the ground, and it's just going to be good for my soil to have something covering the soil and just growing and being alive in the soil. So here's another thing you could do. Here I have a bed of carrots. Now this is a variety of carrot, I believe it's called oxheart. They just grow these short, stubby kind of carrots that I thought would be a good idea to grow in a container or in a raised bed situation like this. So something that you could also do is, for root crops like this, if you don't want to leave them in the ground, you could take them out, like something like carrots or beets, take the greens and actually throw the greens back on top of the soil and just create like a living green mulch, and have that green material break down on top of the soil. It'll cover the soil, prevent it from burning off from the sun, and it'll keep the biology inside the soil healthy. Pretty cool to be in December still pulling things out of the garden. So beautiful carrots. You could just take these carrots out of the ground, or keep them in the ground all winter and just come out and it'd be like them being in the fridge basically. The soil's just going to keep them cool. They actually get sweeter in cold weather. Just take the tops off and leave the tops on top of the soil as a living mulch, green mulch. And that's something I'm going to do right here. This next thing to do is probably my favorite. One, because it's free, and secondly, because I've done this in the past and it's created the best beds that I have anywhere on my farm. And that's just covering the soil, the bare soil, with leaves, and just creating a natural mulch of leaves. So these are slowly going to break down and put really good nutrients back into the soil. And I'm not claiming to be some kind of soil expert, but what I understand is inside the soil there are microbes, very tiny microscopic microbes, and if the microbes are fed and healthy, you're going to have really, really healthy soil. So in the beds that I've done this with leaves in the past, covered in leaves, I've had wonderful, wonderful strawberries. I just had a great crop of sweet potatoes in those same beds this past year. Leaves are amazing because they're so plentiful. You can find them everywhere. You can get them for free. You could take them off your neighbors. They probably don't want them. This is great for covering your beds. They'll break down over time. You could even make compost with them if you get enough of them. Make like a leaf mulch. You could grind them up really, really, really fine with your lawnmower or some other kind of tool and cover your beds that way. Put them in your walkways, but leaves are an amazing, amazing thing to add to cover your soil, and something that I do every year to prevent bare soil from just being exposed to the sun. One other really easy thing you could do to protect your soil for next year is just to cover it with a tarp. There's lots of different tarps you could get. The best kind of tarp I've found is a 6 mil black plastic tarp called a silage tarp. I found some on Amazon, Farmer's Friend. Its website sells some really good ones. But a black tarp is basically just going to have the sun do the work for you. It's called occultation, and when it's really hot, if you have a really weedy area, this will kill those weeds and prepare your soil for the next year. I'm going to quickly open this tarp up so you can see. There's tons of bugs and worms down here. You probably can't see. If I brought the camera closer, you could see, but this got overgrown with weeds. I tarped it. Actually, the best way to utilize the tarp, I found, or this is what I like to do, is run my chickens in a chicken tractor first through that row or area, let them fertilize, pick at things, and then when they're done, I'll cover it with the tarp. So that way, their manure breaks down beneath the tarp and feeds the soil in another way. Another thing you could do is just leave this stuff, like I said, whatever crops were there, maybe come over with a weed whacker or a lawnmower first, and just leave that crop residue right on top there, cover it with a tarp, and let it all break down beneath the tarp until next year, and then you'll be ready to plant. Now, the last thing you might want to consider doing to prepare your soil for next year is to do a soil test. And that's something that I'm going to be doing this year. It's something I did the first year that I started my farm. Before I started planting things, I did a soil test to figure out the acidity of my soil and figure out any amendments that I might want to add to my soil, because I hadn't planted anything there yet and I didn't know what was in the soil. And the same thing, I didn't do that for my 400 square foot raised bed garden area behind me. And at the end of the year, the season this year, I noticed I started to get some insect damage only on these beds, which was all basically just compost that I had brought in this year. So I'm not sure if I just wasn't fertilizing. I didn't really add any fertilizer. It was just the compost that I filled the beds with. So I'm going to see if there's something missing with that soil, because I didn't have bug issues anywhere else on my farm except for this first year garden. And that makes me think that there's something missing with the soil. And that's going to wrap up this video on how to prepare your soil for next year. And I hope you enjoyed this video. If you found any value in it, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this one. All right, see you next time.